You know, I get asked a lot of questions when I'm out and about. One that keeps coming up all the time is, do you actually live at Moss Mountain Farm, or is it just a set for your television shows? Well, actually, I do live here, and it is a set for my television shows. Could you excuse me while I get ready? I'm running late.
Action.
You know, people say, you must be crazy when they realize exactly how much goes on here on a day-to-day basis. They go, how can you live here with so little privacy?
I really need to get your answer.
Oh, I like the green ones.
Do you like that one?
I'll have all four.
Well, very
That's
good.
great. Okay, yeah, thank you. You see, when I was young, my brothers and sisters and cousins and I spent a lot of time at our great-grandparents' farm, and there was always a lot of people there. It was so much fun. That place felt like a slice of lost America. Growing and raising our own food, being close to the earth, getting our hands dirty, and swimming in the creek was always a lot of fun. It's a way of life that felt like it was lost, but now I think it's gaining in popularity. That's why I enjoy sharing this place with you and others that come through here. So why don't we take a little tour around the farm? Let me show you a couple of my favorite places and give you an update on the ever-changing landscape around this place. I really enjoy having visitors and tour groups to the farm to see the gardens and also in the house. You know, as the saying goes, mi casa is su casa, or my home is your home. Hi there, welcome. Come on in. Alan Smith, come on in here. Hi, nice to see you. Beautiful day. Come in, come on. Welcome everyone. This farm goes back to 1840. It's a really special place to me. We have a beautiful view of the Arkansas River Valley. And before you came in, you got to stand under one of the big oak trees. We call her the Big Sister. There's 7 sisters. She was dated at 350 years old, and I think she's looking pretty good for 350 years old. So the house itself is brand new. So it was built to look like a house built in 1840. So we borrowed details from various properties around the state and just one over in Memphis at the Hunt Felon House, which dates 1835. And so I wanted to extract details, Greek Revival architectural details that could be integrated in this house so it really had a strong sense of place. So the house, in terms of the decor, what you'll find is my collection of Southern-made furniture. So all the furniture dates to prior to 1830. There are a few English pieces, but by and large, they're all Southern-made pieces. And the art is either old and English or modern Southern artists or some of my own art. When you move around the house, you're welcome to look anywhere you'd like. So come on around and make yourselves at home in the back.
I'm very excited to be here today. It was breathtaking, and of course I told the girls I was riding with that he had 10,000 daffodils, and I thought that might be too many, but I was really wrong on that.
We're from Monroe, Louisiana. It's beautiful. It's a 4-hour drive. I'm glad we came.
Wow, it's amazing. I can't believe what he's done in such a short period of time.
I have to say the best sound around here is when the lunch bell rings. So why don't you come with me and let me show you what they have in store for them.
And we're doing recipes out of the menu. We're doing grilled pork tenderloin. We've got roasted sweet potato salad on baby spinach. It's fantastic French-style green beans and savory cheese grits.
And I wish you could smell the aroma of this pie. It is so good. This is my buttermilk pecan pie, and we'll serve it with some whipped cream. It is really good stuff. You know, I just love my greenhouse. This time of year when it's cold outside, I can get a head start on spring and spend a lot of quality time out here with some of my little pets. This is where I keep some of my pet plants, so to speak. Like some of these citrus trees you can see over here. Just look at this one. This one's got a little yellow color to it. It's a satsuma, and I've got to give it a little more fertilizer. And some Epsom salts will help improve its color. I really want this dark green color. That's what I'm going for. This is a Myers lemon, isn't it a beauty? So this greenhouse is really cool because it's very manageable. So if you're thinking about getting one, think about the size. It doesn't take a lot to heat this little guy. It's 10 by 16 feet. And some of the amenities that I really like about it, I want to point out to you. Like I've got this curtain. It's actually a shade fabric, and I can pull this along like this. And when I stretch it out, I get a 50% reduction in the amount of sun coming through. Let me tell you, it can get really hot in here in the spring and summer. And so I often use the shade cloth. It gives the guys a little bit of protection. One of the other ways that I can modulate the environment in here is by this hand crank system here. Let me show you how I can open these vents. So I've got this little hand crank. The vents are closed right now, but I can easily open them. I'm just twisting this. And during the summer, it gets really hot, I can leave these open all the time. All right, I'm gonna keep them closed now, but look on this side. I've got these vents that when it really heats up in here, what will happen is this is full of wax, and as the wax expands due to heat, what happens is it pushes that open, so it will automatically vent this greenhouse. So it's really a low-tech, very effective way to keep the temperature in here just at the right level. You see, once it cools off, the wax begins to harden and this automatically closes. Now, a couple of other things you gotta have. You gotta have water. So I've got a water spigot back here that I can hook up to 2 hoses. I could do a little drip system in here if I wanted to, but I just like to come in here and spray the plants down. I also have a heater here that I've got sitting on a metal table. It's electric, and I don't want it anywhere near water, and I want it elevated so there's no chance of fire burning any of my plants. And then over here I have this entire shelf, and this is where I've got lots of little things going on. I've got these tomatoes that are coming along, which I can't wait to plant out in the garden. I'm going to beat my neighbor in terms of who's going to bring tomatoes to the table first. Just look at this guy. And I'm going to leave them in here for about another month, and then I'll put them out. And that's another advantage to having a greenhouse, because you can start all these different things and get an early start on the spring by getting them going in here. And then I also have a place for my house plants, so I can change them out. I can bring them from inside the house out here. It's like taking them to a little day spa. They love it. I leave them out here for maybe, I don't know, a week, 10 days, maybe 3 weeks, and then switch them back and forth from inside the house. So it works really well in that regard too. Of course, another way I use the greenhouse is to start little seedlings. So in about another week, I'm going to start sowing some basil seed, some interesting, really hard to find tomatillos, and also some peppers and tomatoes, things like that. So it's really a useful place, and it's a lot of fun to be out here. You kind of be out here all by yourself. It's kind of your own space. Nobody's around to bother you. If you don't have a greenhouse, you ought to check into getting one. Have you ever put something together or designed something that, well, in the beginning you thought that's just the way you wanted it, and a little later, well, something struck you that maybe you should change it? Well, that's exactly what happened to me here in my vegetable garden. This is what we call the acre garden. And I know an acre is a lot of space, and that sort of gets me to my point. You see, this was a big area with long rows of vegetables, all kinds of vegetables, everything from asparagus to tomatoes to even blueberries. But the problem was it was all laid out in rows. And so people would come out here and they would go, ooh, this is a little bit intimidating. I'm not going to have a garden this large. Also, we were having trouble with erosion. We're on a hill, it slopes to east to west, and each year some of my soil was sliding off in both directions. That was a problem. So I decided to break this garden into 16 little garden rooms. That way, one could see each of these spaces and think, hey, this is manageable. I could do this in my own garden. And by building some raised beds, we're able to contain the soil. Well, you have to wonder, why would a guy have to have an acre garden? Well, I'm a plant geek, okay? I enjoy beautiful plants. My grandparents had a wonderful farm, and their parents had an even more beautiful farm that really influenced me when I was a kid. I wanted a big vegetable garden just like they had. But more to the point, what we use this garden for is demonstration, to show people how to grow things. We try all kinds of different fruits and vegetables, all sorts of edibles, even daylilies. Just take a look at my row of daylilies through here. I've been hybridizing them for 5 years. Daylilies, edible? Of course they are. Daylily petals on a salad are delicious. Okay, I digress. Let's get back to the point. One of the other reasons that we have this vegetable garden here is I love to share the ideas. People can come in and see how we've laid it out. They can get ideas on how to design their own garden. And also, I love to share the food. Yeah, we produce a lot of food in this garden, I'm sure you can imagine. Now, even though this garden is about producing edibles, it doesn't have to be utilitarian or completely functional. You can have a little fun along the way and add some design elements. So as a garden designer, I like to add some unique, creative pieces into the garden. Come on over here and let me show you an example. I really love this little twig trellis that I made out of just some old pear limbs and some twine to tie it together. Drove in some stakes and ran some horizontal limbs back and forth. Adds a nice little rustic element. So not only is it visually compelling to see, it also helps provide some containment for these rambling cucumber vines, and it also supports them. You can see the little cucumber here. Let me show you something else. I don't know about you, but every year in my garden, I'm always trying to figure out supports to grow things on. I have to drag out all kinds of stakes and wire cages. So I thought, hey, why not create a hoop like this that you can walk under? Who doesn't love a tunnel? So what we've created here is a vegetable tunnel. Earlier in the season, I planted some tomatoes, and you can see they're already beginning to grow up, and they'll eventually cover this, along with all kinds of other vining plants, such as cucumbers, beans, and so forth. And the other cool thing about this, as the plants grow, it'll cover this and it'll give me a shady place out in this full sun garden. Now let me show you another support that adds visual interest to this vegetable garden. Now this big boy is called a tuteur. I call it a rustic tuteur. Well, almost a Paul Bunyan tuteur, because it's made with these big pieces of wood that we've collected. Actually, these are old cedar trees. We saved the logs, and I assembled this to serve as a focal point in this garden space or garden room. Tuteur is a French word for support, so this supports a plant that might grow up it. So you can see, you can have a lot of fun in a garden of utility, like a vegetable garden. Just because it's there to grow something very practical, something to eat, doesn't mean you can't have fun and add a little bit of whimsy. The main thing to keep in mind when designing a garden, whether it's a practical garden like a vegetable garden or just a flower garden, is have some fun. Be creative with some of the options. Now I'm going to go back and find those tomatoes. They're so sweet. I call them nature's candy. Now, there's no way I could show you around the farm and not talk about all the animals, because for one, they'd never stand for it, and they're so darn cute. People love interacting with them, but I have to say that sometimes it's challenging to get them to cooperate, especially Moose. He's the most lovable donkey you could ever meet, but sometimes he thinks it's his show. So what we're constructing here, or modifying, is a series of pens. 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. These are going to be little condos for ducks. These are for actually modifying as a, hey Moose, good boy. We're trying to do a TV show here. We're actually doing a little condo unit, if you will, for the ducks. And these stalk Moose, good, I know I love you too. We're trying to, you're such a freeloader. So each one of these units is about 40 square feet. So there'll be a drake and 3 hens. Moose, excuse me. Just trying to do a TV show here. Would you, Moose? In each one of these, we want to make sure that it's predator proof. You don't want anything coming in and digging under, so we're having to dig down below. Moose, you're not a predator. You know, you can't pretend like you're a possum or a raccoon. People are smarter than that. Again, back to predators, and I want something that'll last a long time. What? Look, Buster. I know. You are gonna have to work him into the show. Moose came to the farm about 4 or 5 years ago when I decided, Trudy, now you're getting in it. He is such a bad influence on her. I got him because donkeys are really great for protecting sheep. So I wanted to get these sheep, but before I got the sheep, I wanted to make sure that I had an animal to protect them. And so he became our #1 coyote control officer. We deputized him, right Moose? Everybody loves Moose because he's always around like this, getting into everything. Production crew comes, he gets into their equipment. If I have my lunch with me, he eats my lunch, he eats everybody's lunch. He likes everything. I don't know, he's pretty adorable, really. He has no shoulders, he has tiny little legs and enormous ears. He's always here to want to eat and have his head rubbed on like this. And you, madam, have picked up some very bad habits from him, haven't you? You know, I've always had this thing for roses. Well, I shouldn't say always. When I lived in England and doing my graduate work, I became friends with Lady Elizabeth Ashbrook, she was crazy about roses and had beautiful roses at Arley Hall, which is this wonderful English country house and garden in Cheshire. And so when I came home, I started planting roses in my garden downtown. I had a small garden in the city, and it was just, I totally trashed it out with all kinds of old-fashioned roses. So then I decided that out here at the farm, I would make a really big rose garden, and it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And so what you see here is almost 2 acres that was cleared, and there was this really steep slope that we had to work through. So the construction of this thing turned into a real nightmare. Initially, the idea was to do steps down to this thing, and I just thought, no, that's going to be way out of control. So we ended up using a ramp, and so we made the ramps and we made the drives wide enough that one of our smallest tractors could get through, and certainly any of our utility vehicles could come in here and service it. This time of year, we're getting ready to come in and do some planting. Late winter and early spring is a great time of year to actually go in and transplant or begin to plant roses. In terms of the style of garden, it's really based on a building in Charleston, the Acre Red House. It's a house that I love. It's a preservation, and what they have are some really unique outbuildings that have this kind of low Gothic arch. I really like that motif, and they have these crenellated tops. Looks like little mini castles. So all that came together, and we came up with this large oval and decided to do these 2 buildings, square buildings on either end and an octagon on the center, with the center axis being defined on this south side by this pair of piers and iron gate. And we had the most awesome ironmonger by the name of Stuart Shield, who took an 1840s bonnet that you can see there and copied the weight and look and style. We drew it up and Stuart hammered it out. I mean, he's just really a great craftsman and artist and blacksmith. And so it was no small chore unloading those gates and mounting them on those piers. So the brick here is called the 17th century brick, and it's not a brick that's cut with wire. That's a lot of brick are cut that way. These are actually molded in wood molds, not handmade, but in wood molds. So you get this sort of irregularity, so they look really old. So the idea was for this garden to have an immediate patina of age to it. And so now what we're doing is whenever we have some free time on the farm, when the guys aren't working with the animals or working in the gardens, we come down here and we continue to plant this garden. This is the newest garden on the farm. And you know, it's going to take several years to pull it together, but we're off to a really good start. This winter we lost some things, which is kind of typical, and we'll replace them. We had a few drainage issues. We got to kind of work through those, but it's coming along. What's really interesting about a garden is very much a process. And I think what's exciting to me about this garden is it's ongoing, and as it matures, it'll just get better and better. And so I really hope that you'll check in from time to time, because we'll be looking at the progress. We got the center part of it planted, but there's still some other areas there that need to be spruced up a little bit. And what's really thrilling to me, it's really an extension of that passion that I picked up from Elizabeth Ashbrook at Arley Hall. So I feel like that Anglo-American friendship is still going on. Well, I hope you've enjoyed our tour of Moss Mountain Farms as much as I've enjoyed showing you around. You know, one of my other favorite places around here is up there on the front porch with a cool glass of iced tea. You should come sometime and join me. If you're so inclined, I'd love to see some photographs of your favorite place around your home. You can just post them on my Facebook page. And if you want to join the conversation, just use #GardenHome on Twitter. Until next time, I'm Alan Smith for Garden Home. So what we're building here, or actually modifying, is a, hey Moose, good boy. We're trying to do a TV show here. We're actually doing a little condo unit, if you will, for the ducks. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of these stalls. And these Moose, I already gave you a treat once. You need to back out of the picture. It's not all about you. So each one of these will have a drake and about 3 or 4 hens in it.
Hold on. Okay, so let's reset. Let's get it used out.